Hi friends, in series of lectures of economic survey, today we will discuss taming inflation in the pandemic years. In the pandemic years, the inflation across various countries is very high. So why this inflation is very high across various countries? What are the specific reasons for high inflation in India? To what extent our inflation has gone up? Are we in a comfortable zone? Have we able to succeed in reducing that inflation? What about the different inflations in our country? And what is the pattern of the changing pattern of those inflation figures? And what are the various measures that the government of India has taken in order to tame the inflation? Those things we will looking into this chapter. So before I entering into this, does really inflation must be tamed? That means, do we really need to regulate the inflation? If inflation increases, what happens? First I will come to that point. See, inflation is always curse on the poorer sections of society. Inflation is always a curse on the poorer sections of society. That means if inflation is increasing, though we are doing our part, though we are injecting money, or though we are supplying more and more amount of liquidity into the system, it may not be so fruitful if we are doing it at a higher inflation rate. So inflations are not at all good in the economy. A little amount of inflation is always necessary, but inflation beyond a particular point is not at all good. It reduces the value of money in the economy. So that is the reason why inflation must be tamed, inflation must be always keep it in an appropriate level, otherwise we are going to have a serious consequences. That too an economy like India, where lot of middle class and poor people are there, and India cannot afford high inflation numbers. India cannot afford high inflation numbers because it takes away lot of money that is earned by the poorer people in this country. But anyhow, so I will come to the different reasons why the inflation is very high when I show the numbers of inflation. But first of all, we are looking into the inflation numbers across the world, inflation number across the world. Consumer price inflation rates, advanced economies, and as well as the emerging markets and developing economies. Emerging markets and developing economies. Since 2010 and this 2011 is a period of this whatever the entire crisis period it is, during that point of time the inflations are both high in advanced economies and as well as the emerging markets and developing economies. Again, if you see from 2020, from 2020 to 2021 onwards, the inflation again increased. But if you see the inflation in emerging and developing economies, it was high 5.7, and if you looking into advanced economies, it is 3.1. 3.1 in the sense not every country is having 3.1. Some countries are having more, but the average is around 3.1 for the advanced economies. So the inflation is, it's not only high in emerging economies but also in developed economies. The reason for high inflation in both developed and as well as the developing and emerging markets is, first of all, the stimulus what we have spent, that means almost all the economies have spent some stimulus. Why stimulus? Because economy is in a standstill mode, and in order to revive the economy there must be some amount of money pumped into the economy. In that way we have pumped the money. All the countries have pumped that money, including United States of America. And stimulus is one aspect, because if you are pumping more amount of money means the money supply in the economy increases, and that means the more amount of money will start chasing less amount of goods, that leads to the economic tendencies. Second one is pent up demand. Pent up demand. So pent up demand means the demand was already there, the demand has come down. Now when we have started when you are opening our economies, then what happened is immediately there was a huge demand started, but our supplies by that time they are already at a stagnant position. They could not meet the sudden demand or the sudden pent up demand. So there is a huge demand but less supply even after opening the lockdowns. That is also one of the reason why we are having this high amount of inflation in the reviving phase from 2020 to 2021. There are other problems which are specific to the different countries, but whenever it is come to the India, I will explain Indian specific problems. But this inflation is a tendency in both emerging economies and as well as the developed economies. See, consumer price inflation in selected countries. See, if you are looking into the selected countries, that means the comparable countries, you can understand where India is. See, it was comparison from January 21 to December 21, that means in the reviving phase, US, Brazil, India, UK. See, if you are looking into India, India is 5.6, If you are looking into the UK, it was 5.4, this is UK's 5.4. If you are looking into the United States of America, it is 7, higher than India. If you are looking into the Brazil, it was much more higher than India, it is 10.1. So Brazil. So when you compare ourselves with some of the comparable countries, we can see how India is maintaining its inflation. And you must also know some of the facts as far as this inflation is concerned. The United States of America's inflation is almost 7%. It is the highest since 1982. That means the country has not seen such a level of inflation since 1982. And one of the major reason for such an increase in inflation is the general reasons like stimulus and as well as the pent up demand. Apart from that, the increase in energy prices, that means crude oil prices has increased across the world, and also the increase in price level of the second hand vehicles. So normally second hand vehicles, they will use the usage of that vehicles is said because of the price increase in second hand vehicle and energy prices. United States of America's inflation has increased to that extent of 7%. Now if you are looking into the UK's 5.4, for us it looks like very low, but if you looking into the UK's history, it is nearly 30 years high. That means since last 30 years, United Kingdom has never faced such a inflation of 5.4%. And you have seen the Brazil number, it is 10.1. And I will give another country's number, Turkey. Turkey's inflation is 36.1%. Turkey's inflation is 36.1%. And I will give another country, Argentina. And if you are looking into the Argentina's inflation, it is more than 50%. So now you can understand where are we. Though as a absolute number we are higher than UK, but the level at which India has maintained in the history, we are still in a comfortable position. And there are some years where India has maintained double digit inflation rates, but now we not went to that. But anyhow, India's inflation is moderate and it is within the limit, and you know the limit, it is 4 plus or minus 2%. So this is the limit. So this is the limit and we are within that limit, and whereas if you compare UK or USA, Brazil, Turkey, Argentina, you can understand where are they and where are we, you can understand from this. So that means India is in a comfortable inflation level, and even if you looking into this March 21 also, it was not even high, but there are some months where you have maintained some little above the normal whatever the benchmark number what we have decided, but overall inflation is 5.6 that we have seen in the month of December 2021. So this is the level of inflation across the various countries. Now while looking into the general inflation based on different prices indices. So there are different inflations are there in India, but Reserve Bank of India for its policy purpose they will use the CPI combined, but WPI has its own relevance, CPI industrial workers has its own relevance, CPI agricultural labor has its own relevance, CPI rural labor has its own relevance. Now we are looking into WPI. From 2015 to 16 they have given it was minus 3.7, 1.7, 3.0, 4.3. These are the pandemic years, 1.30, but again in the year 21-22 it was suddenly increased to 12.5. That means a lower number and again it has increased to 12.5, very high, very high. Whereas if you are looking into the CPI 4.9, 4.5, 3.6, 3.4, 4.8, even during the pandemic 6.2, 6.6, but again we have reduced it to 5.2, that means provisional 21-22. So 6.2, 6.6, though it is higher compared to that of the previous years, but it is little above the benchmark rate of 6%, but still we are able to reduce it to 5.2. CPI industrial worker, and I want to give CPI industrial worker from 2020 onwards, it is based on a new series of 2016. The base year for remaining inflations is 2011 and 12, but for industrial workers it was 2016. It was recently changed. Just keep it in mind. You may get a prelims question on this. Anyway, CPI agriculture labor and rural labor, you can see there was an increase 7.0, 6.8, but it has come down to 3.1, 3.5. So why this CPI inflation has increased? There are reasons why WPI inflation is increased. I will come to that reasons later, but first of all let me take this CPI. Why the CPI inflation has increased? See, there are various reasons why the CPI inflation has increased. One reason is I told you the liquidity injection, first point. Second one is the pent up demand, just now I have discussed. Third one is the input prices. See, input prices in the sense, some of the items that we need to import in order to do some sort of manufacturing or make the final product. Because of the lockdowns or because of the global supply chain disturbances, the input cost of the some of the product increases. That is the reason why the inflation has increased. That is one aspect. Second one is, though there is an enough demand in the economy, but lot of supply constraints because of sporadic lockdowns. See, even though we don't have a nationwide lockdown, but some of the states and at the local level there was a lot of supply side constraints are there, and supply side constraints are one of the reasons for increased inflation, because we may not transport the goods in an appropriate time, or even if you transport, the cost involved in the transportation is very high. So that is the reason why the inflation has increased. Anyway, the disturbance in global supply chain that I have told. Next one, increase in energy prices. See, in the year 2020 the energy prices were low, but in the year 2021 it has started increasing. The energy prices has its own effect on the whatever the price involved, effect on the price of goods and services. Next, both food and non-food item has also increased, both food and non-food, that is the reason why it has food and non-food. And even the freight, increase in freight cost, that I have been explaining this factor since starting of this economic survey. Because of increase in freight cost, also the prices increased. So these are some of the reasons why inflation has increased, in India, especially the CPI inflation. Here CPI, headline inflation, you know what is the meaning of headline inflation, that includes food and energy related aspects also. So if you looking into this 2021-22, it is April to December that they have given, so it is 5.2, and in the year 2021, if you see 2021, it is April to December, it is 6.6. that means in the first quarter it is 6.6, but it has come down to 5.2. in the year 2021 it is 6.2. in the year 2021 it is 6.2. okay, overall year is 6.2, 2021 6.6 and 5.2 if you compare the whatever the first half of the financial year. So we are able to tame it. Next, now if I clearly show the different aspects of the CPI inflation, and you are all aware about the weightage of the different aspects of items in the CPI, If you looking into the consumer food price index, that means instead of the total index, I am just only taking the food price index. If you looking into the food price index, they have given monthly wise from 2019, 2020, 2021 and 2021. This 2021 includes the April to December, and again this is April to December of 2021, 21, 22. Now again this is in different months. This is the overall number, The overall number is 2019-20, it is 4.8, 2021 overall is 6.2, in the first half it is 6.6, in the first half of the 21-22 it is 5.2, that means we have reduced it. Now I am looking into the food inflation. Food inflation is 39.1 is a weightage. If I only looking into this food inflation, we can observe in the 2021 it was 7.7, and generally we don't calculate food inflation, but in order to know the contributing factors to the overall inflation, we are just compartmentalizing and we are looking into the each and every aspect. Anyway, 7.7 in the year 2021, and if you looking into the first half of the year of 2021, it was 9.1, but now it was able to, now we are able to bring it back to 2.9 in the first half of 21-22. So food inflation has caused the CPI inflation to become high, but we have tamed it, and it was 9.1 to 2.9 in the first half of the current financial year. Now if you looking into the food and beverages, you know the CPI is having, in the CPI food and beverages, they are going to have almost 45.9% of the weightage. And if you see 2021 7.3, 8.4 in the first half of, and we are able to reduce it to 3.5. That means from 8.5 we have brought it to 3.5, 8.4 to 3.5. And one thing just I want to show, if you see the cereals and products, see it was 9.7, 2.8 in the year 2021, 3.8. In the first half of it is 5.2, but we are reduced it to minus 0.6. Because of this public distribution system and because of the giving of these food grains continuously, we have not allowed, because cereals are one of the most staple food in India, that includes rice and wheat. And because of this free public distribution system are under National Food Security Act, whatever the things we have supplied, because of that we are able to tame the inflation of the cereals and other products, When you looking into the meat and fish, when you looking into the egg, their actually their inflation is very high, but as their weightage is so low, it may not have much impact on the overall inflation. And if you looking into the oil and fats, this is very important, we need to understand, because survey has also thrown some light on this oil and fats. And in the year 2020, see in the year 2019, if you see it is only 2.9, but if you see it in the 2021, 16 point, and we are all aware like our edible oil prices has increased, so it is 16%. And if you looking into the first quarter, if you looking into the first half of the 2021, it was 14%. But instead of taming, if you observe in the 21-22, it got increased to 30%. That means during the pandemic, the item which has the item in which the price rise has more is edible oil. Crude oil also there is an increase, but I will come to that later. But in oil and fat, it was increased from 14 to 30% in the first half of 2020-21 and 21-22. Okay. And if you see vegetables, 21.3 in 1920, 5.8 in 2021, again it has increased to 11. And survey has also thrown some projection on how these vegetables prices increases, what are the different reasons for that. Anyway, I will discuss. And pulses also there is an increase in inflation, 16.4 in the 2021 and 17.6 in the first half of, but we are able to tame it to 7.1. Okay. And if you looking into the fuel and light, you can see 1.3, 2.7, 2.3 in the first half of the 2021, 2.3 in the first half of 2021, but if you see the post pandemic year, that means the present year, it increased 12.2. So the only item which got more increase from pandemic to post pandemic, that is to the current year, is edible oils and this crude oil. But in the both the things, if you looking into the edible oil aspect, there was a more increase in edible oil aspect compared to that of crude oil, Okay, just try to have this idea, because these are the only items that got an increase. If you looking into the entire chart, even fruits also the price increased, but fruits and vegetables have some reason. I will explain that fruits and vegetables reasons in the next session. So next, CPI excluding food and fuel group. So that means now if you take the CPI core, normally we don't do, but if you take CPI core, there was no much change in inflation. See 4%, 5.5% in 2021, first half of 5.4, and first half of 21-22 it is just 5.9. That means there is no much increase. That means the much amount of inflation that India has faced, it is because of mostly related to the food and fuel item. Okay, because in the core, if you see excluding food and fuel, it was normal. Okay, 5.9, though it is to some extent a very big number, but when you compare it to the inflation of the food and fuel, it is not that high. Next, so the contribution of groups to overall CPIC inflation in 2021. Now, if you see, I have shown only some aspects of the CPI. Now, food and beverages, if you observe 2021 April December, that means first half of 2021 and first half of 21-22, this is a weight. See, the weightage is very high, and if you see in the year 2021, the reason for high inflation is the contribution of the food and beverages is very high. Contribution of food and beverages is very high in the year 2021, but whereas when we come to 21-22, the contribution of food and beverages is still high, but it is not to that extent of 2021. That means we are so successful in taming the inflation of food and beverage aspect of CPI. But where actually we got the problem? We got the problem in this fuel and light. we got the problem in fuel and light. That means fuel and light is a problem, because our prices has increased, the crude oil prices increased. That is the reason why it contributed a lot. And even if you looking into the clothing and footwear, because of the input cost increase, so it has also contributed. But another important thing that you need to understand in the CPI is miscellaneous item. So these are the miscellaneous item contributed a lot, and in this miscellaneous item the most important aspect is the transport and communication. Transport and communication, and you are all aware why transport and communication has caused inflation, because transport is depending on again fuel prices has increased. That is the reason why the transport and communication increased. Second one is the health aspect. The health prices also increase, because these things will be added in the miscellaneous of CPI. But anyhow, in the year 2021 the food prices are the reason, but we are able to tame it. But even if you tame it, you can see 30% is again contributed by food and beverage. So food and as well as the fuel. In case of CPI, miscellaneous, in that miscellaneous the transport and communication, and you know the reason why health cost increased, because of the pandemic, okay. Yeah. Now fuel and light and transport and communication inflation. Now if you getting into the details, and if you declassify fuel and light from April 18 to December 21, see the fuel first of all. This is the pandemic, February 20, at this point of time very high. But if you observe these days, this is a period because of lockdowns and no economic activity, that means a little amount of economic activity, there is no much demand for the fuel. That is why the producing countries started stop the production. That means they reduce the production level. So that is the reason why the fuel prices is low. But again, the moment when economy started, the demand for the fuel increases, and the countries are in the process of increasing the production, that has led to the increase in fuel prices. Okay. So this is what you need to understand. Second one, transport and telecommunication. Though the fuel prices are low, but still the transport and communication prices increased because of pandemic. Okay, we don't want to go along with everyone, and even the persons involved in the transportation, they are so careful about that. So at that point of time, even we are ready to spend some extra amount of money because of safety. So it is increased, and now still it is high. Now compared to that of pandemic time, it is low, but still it is high. So this is the fuel and transport and communication. Now international crude oil prices, Indian basket, you just see again, these are international crude oil prices. If you see, so April to 20, this is just I'll draw a benchmark of $70 in a comfortable range, from 20 to 70. But it is the international price. In the domestic market, we haven't seen such a reduction because of the taxation system of government. Because government don't want to pass on this benefit to us, but there was a little benefit transferred. But after this, when the international prices itself increases, government don't want to provide any cushion, but at last they have reduced some amount of money. I think 10 rupees on diesel and 5 rupees on petrol they have done. But this is the international tendency that is started crossing beyond 70. Now according to 21st Jan 2022, it is $86.28. Okay. Now I'll come to the inflation of the vegetables. Economic survey has detailedly explained some factors with respect to these vegetables and horticulture crops. Because this horticultural crops, the inflation in horticultural crops are the inflation in some of the vegetables is very high. What are the reasons for this high amount of inflation in the horticultural crops and vegetables? So, in the boxes survey has clearly explained, anyway I am giving that explanation. So, a time series often has 4 components. Depending on these 4 components, inflation in these things will be increased, and here they have taken the example of tomato and onion. Survey has given clear explanation on tomato and onion. But before I will come to tomato and onion, just I want to explain what are the reasons for increasing inflation. First one is trend, second one is cycle, third one is seasonal, fourth one is irregular. See, what is the meaning of trend? Trend indicates a long term rise or fall in prices. See, sometimes because of some of the reasons we can find some sort of trend. Trend in the sense, suppose if you draw a graph, over a period of time it will increase, and whatever the things increase it will sustain, and over a period of time it will come down, and whatever they have come down it will sustain. So, this is a trend. This is nothing but a trend. And why this trend happened and what are the reasons for this trend? Whatever may be the reason for trend, but that reason is continuous. It's not volatile. The reason is continuous, and that is the reason why we maintain a long term rise or long term fall in the prices. Second one is a cycle. Cycle represents a rise or fall in the prices that are not of a fixed frequency, such as representing the business cycle. So, when I say cycle means it may go up once, again it may come down, and when come down it is not necessary again to follow the same cycle, but again it can go up, again it can come down. So, like cycle can be anything. That means the prices can change in 2 ways. One is either a trend way or in a cycle. That means for a long term it may be high and for long term it may be low. But whereas in case of cycle it will be volatile. That means it may not be follow the same frequency, but sometimes rise, sometimes it is fall. Now we will find the reasons. The seasonal and irregular, especially when it comes to the vegetables and other horticultural product, the seasonality is a very important reason. Is one of the very important reason. So, seasonality is a fixed frequency and occurs at a particular point of time during the year. Seasonality in prices could occur due to the seasonal pattern of production of agricultural commodities or seasonality in demand such as major festivals. So, season can be anything. In some season you will have good production, in some season you don't have good production. In some seasons you will have good demand, in some seasons you don't have good demand. So, based on the seasonality, the supply and as well as the demand varies, and based on that the prices of these particular goods these particular commodities will also varies. So, seasonality is a one reason. Sometimes in the monsoon season normally there is a bumper production, and in lean season there is no bumper production. During the times of the marriage and other functions, normally the demand is very high, and during the lean season demand is low. Based on that, seasonality is one of the important factor that is changing the prices of the vegetables and horticultural crops. Second one is irregular. Irregular means you can't say clearly what is the reason to that. Okay, even after completion we can attribute any reason, but you cannot say in prior which could be the reason. And the seasonality and irregular conditions both are the reasons for the increase in prices. Now I will show how this seasonality and irregularity has increased the prices. See, so seasonality and irregularity in the retail price of tomato and onion. They have taken tomato and onion. The first one is varying pattern of production of these commodities during the different months of an year. We know that is seasonality. On the other hand, shocks often originated from uncertain weather conditions and other unpredictable events. This is something about irregular event. This is something about irregular event. So in the production process, based on different seasons, the production may change and demand may change, but there are some unpredictable things and uncertain weather events. During that point of time also the prices increases. Now here they have shown, they have drawn a graph from April 2016 to December 21. They have drawn a graph of the retail prices of tomato and onion, and this line is tomato and this line is onion. Suppose I will show some points to you. See, this is June, July, August. Okay, August 17. I will just write August 17. Just I will write this. It is October 19. That means October 2019. October 2019. Just I will draw some points. August, September 20. September 20. And even I will write this October 20. See, why I am writing, you will understand. Because during this period the prices are very high. Now you must find out the reasons for the prices, the reason for the high prices. You must find the reason for the high prices. See, we will see the August. Okay, now I will come to the next. Yeah, seasonality in the retail prices of tomato. It was 2019, 2020, 2021, for 3 years they have given. So 2019, 2020, 2021. No. Now just I will show, we are discussing about tomatoes. No, I will show this September 20 aspect. See, 2020 September. If you looking into the September month aspect, if you looking into the September month aspect, the contribution of, again you see the August and again July. If you see the July, August, September, again I will come to the July, August, September. The July, August, September, okay, the July, August, September, the July, August, September. That means these are the months in which you have the high amount of tomato prices. And one of the reason for the tomato price is that the seasonality. Now you can see 2020, July, August, September, this blue box. So the reason how they are contributing. But in the month of September it was so low. In the month of September it was low. That means the seasonality is not a reason for the month of September to that extent. But whereas in case of the other months it was very high. Now I will come to the next one. Now if you looking into the August and October, that means in between there is a month of September and October. If you see, the irregularity is one of the reason for increase. In the October 20 you have the irregularity. In the October 20 you have the irregularity. To some extent in August also you have the irregularity, but the seasonality was very high in July, August. The irregularity was very high in October. Seasonality was very high in July and August, but irregularity was very high in September, October. That is the reason why if you see from July, September, October, from July, August, September, October, you can see the high prices of tomatoes. High prices of tomatoes. So the point I want to tell you is, there is no one single reason. The reason is seasonality and as well as the uncertainty. And if you want to know that uncertain condition, just go through the survey, you will get it is unpredictable or the unexpected rains that happened across various states, so that got disturbed the crop. So that is the reason why this uncertainty came. Now I will show another aspect also. Sorry. See, take these months 2019, 2020, 2021, February, March, April. And if you see the February, March, April, the seasonality was very low. That means the seasonality was not at all a reason. The seasonality, because of huge production, actually the price level has come down. But if you see the February, April, June, and if you see the unpredictability also low. and because of this unpredictability is low and seasonality is low, and if you see the low level of prices, low level of prices. So that means whenever there is having a price rise, just go and try to observe whether it is because of the seasonality or because of this whatever the shocks or uncertain events. Now again I will show you with respect to the onions. Again I will take the onion aspect here. See the onion aspect again, it's October December 2019, October December 2019 one wave one that I have taken, and even October December 2020, October December 2020, just these two I will take so that you can understand. October December 2019, October December 2020. Yeah. So October to December 2019, 2020 you can take 2019, 2020, 2019, 2020. Seasonality is a reason. Seasonality is a reason. Again, October 19 and October to December. Yeah, here high irregularity because of this rains and all, but here low irregularity, low irregularity. Now if you see high irregularity, low irregularity, again I will come to the prices of the onions. Yeah, that is the reason why though there is an increase, but the increase is very high in October December 2019 compared to that of October December 2020. The reasons are well known, if you see the seasonality factor is increased, and as well as there is much increase in this irregularity, So if at all you will get any question on inflation with respect to these items, you must mention about the factor of seasonality and the factor of irregularity which they have mentioned it in the economic survey. Okay, simply you cannot write the points which you know. Okay, if you bring this analysis by quoting the survey, then it will be very good. Okay, so this is something about the prices of both onions and as well as the tomato. A separate explanation was given, and some of the newspapers have also written articles on this tomato onion prices analysis, which includes the seasonality and irregularity. Okay, next. Inflation in oils and fats. You can see from October 19 what is the inflation. Okay, oil and fats, and if you decode it and if you see mustard oil, groundnut oil, refined oil, ghee, if you see the inflation how it started increasing, you can just you can understand. Refined oil, sunflower, soybean, groundnut oil, mustard oil, which one is high? Mustard oil is very high, then later refined oil, then later groundnut oil, and then later ghee. Okay, next. See this analysis also they have given. If you are looking into the import of edible oils both in terms of value and both in terms of volume, this is quantity wise. See 2018-19, 2019-20, 2020-21, and if you are looking into the 2019-20 to 2021, there was a small reduction in the quantity of imports of edible oils, but still if you are looking into this, the value of that product, the value of that edible oil is increased. So there was an inflation in the edible oil. That means not because there is no availability of the edible oil, or not because people want to consume more edible oil, but because of the value of the edible oil increased, and almost 60% of our country's needs are met through the imports. And if something happened, especially in Indonesia, Malaysian region, because from that place we are importing these edible oils more. So the increase in prices there will automatically have an effect. That is the reason why we are having this inflation in the edible oils. You have seen up to 30% we have the inflation, up to 30% we have the inflation. The reason is value, not volume. Okay. Next. Now, if you are looking into the CPI rural and urban inflation, the food and beverages inflation in rural India and urban India, they have given. Normally, we are having the low inflation in rural India, but anyhow in urban India it is to some extent very high. The reasons are because the weightage allotted to both rural India and urban India are not same, because the fuel aspect will have more impact, the fuel aspect or the food aspect. See, the different aspects have different impact on both rural and urban, because the weightage is not same for both rural and urban. That is the reason why this change is there. So don't say like inflation in rural area is same to that of inflation in urban area. No, okay, it is different because the weightage for the rural area is different and weightage for the urban area is different. And see the food and beverages in rural India and food and beverages in urban India. Food and beverages, yes, this is low in rural India and high it in urban India. Okay. Next, if you see, yeah, now I will come to this WPI. I will come to this WPI, trend in WPI. So what is this WPI? Wholesale price index based inflation. The difference between CPI and WPI, you know, so I don't want to repeat it again. So they are going to collect the prices at the wholesale level, but whereas in case of the CPI, the prices will be collected at the retail level. And if you see all commodities, food item and non-food manufactured item, they have shown the number. So from April 14 to December 21. And if you see this, this period, if you see, you can understand the low level of all commodities inflation, the low level of non-food manufactured item. That means apart from food, what are the manufacturing item? They are at the lower level, not even lower, they are at zero, even sometimes went to negative. But because of this positive food inflation, it has maintained 0 and little above 0. Anyhow, this food item, because food has its own inflation, we have seen in the year 2020-21. In the year 2020-21, we have the food inflation, but in the current year we have reduced the inflation level. That inflation is going to have the effect here also. But apart from the food, if you are looking into this manufactured items, their inflation is low. Now I will show the graph. Now I will show the statistics of this inflation in selected groups of WPI. And if you are looking into the WPI, the weightage of different items in the WPI is not same that of the CPI. Suppose in the food and beverages, if you take, it is 45 point, okay, I will come to that analysis little bit later. Okay, anyway, you take all the commodities, the primary articles weightage. The primary articles weightage is 22.6, and in this primary article there are various items are there. Food items are also included in the primary articles. Food items are also included in the primary articles. So in manufacture also food is there, but in primary food is there. If you see 2020-21 1.7 inflation, 1.3, it has suddenly become 8.6. I will tell you the reason why it has become 8.6. And if you take the food articles in the 18-19, 8.4, it is 3.2 and it is 4. That means to some extent food article is maintained normal, but the primary article there was a sudden jump increase. And if you see the cereals, we are able to maintain low level of inflation. The reason just I have said to you, because of the supplying of food grains through the National Food Security Act, there was an increase in inflation. Okay, so little bit, but high inflation in pulses. If you see the vegetables, you can find the jump. And crude petroleum and natural gas. This is one important aspect you need to know. And even these three items you just see. non-food articles, first half of minus 0.4 to 20.4 sudden jump, minerals 3.5 to 15.3 sudden jump, crude petroleum and natural gas minus 25 to 57.9 sudden jump. Now I am just try to observe these figures from the previous half. That means this 21-22 first half, 20-20 first half, you can see the quantum jump. You can see the quantum jump, and even you can see the fuel and power aspect, manufactured aspect. Okay, and just try to see the edible oil aspect also. 17 to 36.4. Just now I have shown edible oil. Okay, so if you looking into this WPI based inflation, there was a low inflation in the year of 2021, but suddenly it has increased gradually to 20%, 15%, 57%, 31%. And on overall, if you want to take from 0% to 12.5% in the first half. But if you take the overall year, it was 1.3. But anyhow, this year we are going to have high amount of WPI inflation. So though there was a little increase in the CPI inflation to the 6.2, we are able to reduce it to below 6. That means the CPI inflation is a little increased above the benchmark level, but we have tamed it. But whereas when it comes to the WPI, it is constantly increasing. So what is the reason for this divergence between CPI inflation and WPI inflation? Why CPI inflation is coming down? Why WPI inflation is going up? Anyway, Reserve Bank of India don't concern about this WPI, but we need to understand the reason for why CPI is coming down, why WPI is going up. Just have you observed these items, then I will explain. Okay, non-food articles, minerals, crude and petroleum, and edible oils. And you know the reason for edible oil. Just now I have shown how the value of the edible oil has increased. Now, so divergence between year on year inflation in CPI and WPI. See, if you see June 19 to February 21, if you see the WPI is low, CPI is high. But when it comes to the February 21, the WPI started increasing, CPI is coming down. This is the divergence you need to understand. So this is the divergence. So why this divergence happened? Why this divergence happened? Again I will show. Okay, yeah. Why this divergence happened? First let me explain this divergence here. See, I have explained the reason for CPI, and food inflation was very high during this time. That is the reason why it has increased. But when it comes to the fuel prices, it was low. Actually it was low, but because of the miscellaneous aspect of transport and communication, it got increased it again. And the clothing and footwear, it got increased. Because of health, it is increased. So there are reasons to say, again I will show. There are reasons to show that. Yeah. See, this is the CPI. If you see in the year 2021, it was food is the one reason, miscellaneous is another reason, food is another reason, miscellaneous is another reason, and to some extent this housing and little bit footwear, but footwear is not low. Housing, this is some, but most of the times it is food and beverages and miscellaneous items. In the next year we have tamed it. Even though we tamed it, food and beverages contributed to some extent. This clothing and footwear is another reason, housing is another reason, fuel and lighting is one more reason, because it is increased, fuel prices has increased. Miscellaneous is also one of the reason, because transport and communication is also increased. Transport and communication has contributed in both the years. But here fuel prices are low, but because of lockdown pandemic condition, it was contributed a lot. Here the lockdown has relaxed, but because of the fuel price, it has increased more. Anyhow, health has a reason in both the years. So now I will come to that graph. Now see, in the CPI initially the food and beverages and the miscellaneous has contributed. But whereas if you looking into the WPI, because the weightage allotted to the different items are different, if I want to give the weightage allotted to the different items in the WPI is, the manufacturing is 64.4.2. You know all these numbers, but still I am giving. Primary articles it is 22.6. Primary articles it is 22.6. Fuel and power if you take, it is the remaining around 13.2%. Okay. Okay. So 6 to 8, 10, 4 to 6. Okay. So this is the different weightage of items in the WPI. Now I will just add some more items here. If you looking into the food and beverage aspects, the weightage in this, because both the items included the food aspect, because in manufacturing we use the processed food. So the WPI provided weightage to the food and beverage food item is 24.4. So 20.4 is assigned to the food by WPI. But whereas if you looking into the food aspect to the CPI, it is 45.9. So the food aspect of the CPI is 45.9, whereas in case of WPI it is 24.4. That means a sharp increase in food prices may affect CPI more, but it may not affect WPI more, because the food prices, though there is an increase, the weightage itself is low, so it may not, it have the effect, but it may not have such an effect like how it has affected the CPI. So that is one thing you need to understand, why WPI is low, why CPI is high first. Second one, you take the fuel and power aspect. See, for the fuel and light, here we have assigned 13%. Now again I will write fuel and light in the WPI is 13.2%, but whereas if you looking into the CPI, it is 6.8%. It is 6.8%. This is in CPI and this is in WPI. Now you know that in the first year, that means prior to February 21, the fuel prices are low. So the fuel prices are low, as the weightage is very high, definitely it will plunge down more compared to that of CPI. That is one of the reason why the CPI is high and WPI is low. You understood from the food inflation, you understood from the fuel inflation. You understood from the food inflation, you understood from the fuel inflation. Anyway, when I will come to the miscellaneous have a huge weightage in CPI, but miscellaneous things don't have a weightage in WPI, so we don't consider here. But on the above, apart from this food and as well as this fuel, now I am looking into this manufacturing activity is having weightage of 64.2%. You can understand what is the level of manufacturing that this country has undergone. You know the level of manufacturing during the lockdown. So lot of weightage is given to that. So when there is no economic activity, definitely it will have a huge impact on this WPI. That is the reason why this has plunged more. So this is the reasons for the divergence. Food, fuel and as well as the manufacturing item, the different weightages that we have seen, that is the reason. And even apart from that, the price collections, the item covered, and also the scope and coverage, the weightage, these are all reasons. The weightage, collection methodology, the sample we take, the items we covered, these are all reasons. These are the three main reasons. Now again I will explain. Okay, anyway let it be. So anyway I will explain why again it is increased here and reduced here. The first point is CPI is tamed because food inflation has reduced. So food inflation reduced means definitely CPI reduced, but there is no much reduction in the WPI. There is much reduction in CPI, but there is no much reduction in WPI because the weightage is very less. When the weightage is very less, the reduction will have only little amount. That is one thing you need to accept. So But anyhow, if you looking into the fuel prices, you have seen the fuel prices what happened after this time. Fuel prices has gradually increased. That is the reason why the fuel prices have, again the weightage is less, that is the reason why it may not increase too much, but the WPI it is increased so high because the fuel prices has increased. Fuel prices has increased one aspect because of low weightage. Third one is the manufacturing activity started. So manufacturing has contributed a lot. But on the above, the input cost not only include the fuel. Just I will show. The minerals, lot of minerals cost is increased because of the freight cost increased, because of the increase in freight cost, or because of sudden increase in demand, there is no enough amount of supply to meet the demand. Sudden increase in demand, there is no enough supply to meet the demand, and these minerals, crude, petroleum and natural gas and some of the non-food articles are the inputs to the manufacturing activity. So because of increase in input in different terms, the entire cost of production is increased. And the cost of production is increased, economic production activity increased, fuel prices increased on a lower base. That is also you need to understand, on a lower base. If this much increase happened in all these things on a lower base, definitely the little increase in overall price will looks like a very high amount. That is the reason why we are maintaining 12% WPI. Because with 0 you have to compare, from 0 because of lower base, but increase in these activities. So these are the reason for divergence between CPI and WPI. These are the reasons for divergence between CPI and WPI. Okay. Next. So year on year inflation cycle in retail food and wholesale energy prices, just with that you can understand. Suppose if you take fuel and power, see it was low, again it got increased. See the case of the food, it was very high but it has come down. Here it is high, here it is come down. Just now I have explained how the food prices changed and how the fuel prices changed. Next. Yeah. The next important aspect of this inflation is the inflation in housing prices. Because housing is a very important sector, because it is having a capacity to stimulate other some 150 to 200 sectors. Because if housing industry is developing, means not only it provide the employment to the construction workers, but also it will revive the demand, it will revive the sectors of cement, bricks, concrete, steel, plastic, PVC, electricity, trucks. There are lot of different sectors that will get boosted with these housing sectors. Now we are looking into how this housing, because housing is one important aspect we have seen in CPI. Just again I will go there. See the housing. There is a little contribution, but if you see there is no much change in the contribution of housing. There is a contribution, but compared to that of miscellaneous food and beverages and fuel, the housing is less. That means we have seen like, okay, entire lockdown, complete construction activity has closed, no demand. When there is no demand, there should have been increase, there should have been decrease in prices, but that does really it happen? No, the housing prices have not come down in spite of lockdown. But suddenly when the economy started, does it really increase so much? That we will see now. But to the overall inflation, this contribution is not so high. Yeah, see, this is showing the transactional change. This is showing a price change from April June 2019. The yellow box shows 20 and the green box shows 21. That means first wave and second wave. See, I will show you in this. See the transactions. they have given various cities: Mumbai, Gandhinagar, Ahmedabad, Ranchi, Delhi, Chennai. Suppose I will take a particular city, Mumbai first, Mumbai. Okay, here Mumbai, and I will draw here Mumbai. See the transaction, that means the demand, see the demand. The demand has completely come down, minus 83.6 during the first pandemic, during the first wave. And in the second wave, there was an increase in 17%. In the first wave, reduction of the transactions or the selling or the demand is 83, and in the second it is 17. But see, if you looking into the Mumbai, in the first wave, the prices are still high, 6.7. The prices are still high, 6.7. The prices are still high, 6.7. That means the reduction in the demand may not have much impact on the price of that. Now again, if you looking into the various cities, there was a huge gap in the transactions, but if you looking into this, there is no much such a level of gap or such a level of difference happened in prices. That means the volatility that happened in the housing sector, not because of change in prices, but only because of change in transactions. That means people don't want to purchase now itself. People want to purchase at a later date because this condition is uncertain. People don't want to purchase because the prices are so high. People want to purchase more because the prices are low. This is not the condition. The condition is not that people don't want to purchase because the prices are high, or people want to purchase more, prices are low. Prices don't have much effect compared to that of transaction. The only thing is transaction is the problem, and this transaction can be, this transactional problem can be resolved. This transactional problem can be resolved once this we are entering into the normalcy. So no much change in housing prices. But even if you have seen the Ahmedabad, Gandhinagar and Hyderabad seen such a major change, but Ranchi, Delhi, Noida, a little amount of reduction, but more are, if you exclude these three, but more are the other way, they are close to that level of 2019 as far as the prices are concerned. But when you looking into the sellings, when you looking into the sales, it was huge divergence that happened. Okay. Next. Yeah. So this is something about the different aspects of the inflation. This is something related to different aspects of the inflation. I have shown you the world level, the different countries' inflation, and I have shown you in India how the inflation is changed, both CPI and WPI, and why the CPI has increased and come down, how we are able to tame the CPI, and what is the WPI, and why it was low, and again why it was very high, that we have seen. And after that we have seen a specific thing or the specific explanation given in the survey with respect to the onion and tomato prices, and even we have seen the divergence between CPI and WPI, and we have seen the price increase in housing sector. But the inflation we calculate for our own purposes by the Reserve Bank of India is CPI, and we are able to tame our own CPI or consumer price index. And in order to tame this inflation, what are the different methods that the government of India has taken? We can see it in the policy response, but these are the statistics. Just try to draw something from the statistics and try to understand the graphs and the different charts that they have given. Okay, so this is something about the taming of inflation in the pandemic years. So taming of inflation in the pandemic years that you can observe here. Okay, thank you.
Amrita IAS Academy.